Prioritizing our health and wellness as nurses is no longer optional. Now, why would I say that? Well, we're going to be looking at what the data is telling us, what's really happening behind the scenes of our profession, and how our wellness impacts not just our work, but our health, our relationships, and really the future of nursing itself. Make sure you stick around to the end because I'm going to be walking you through a quick wellness reset that you can use today to start prioritizing your wellness in a way that is real, practical, and also sustainable. Hi, everyone. I'm Dr. Katie Stevens, RN, founder of Katie Stevens Consulting, and I have been a nurse for over 20 years, serving in many different settings and many different roles, everything from the bedside to the executive suite. And like so many of you, I have struggled over the years to really prioritize my own health and wellness. Several years ago, I hit a wall hard. I hit burnout and complete exhaustion. It was the kind that doesn't go away just after a quick weekend off. And walking through that season really changed the way I see wellness now, both personally and professionally. And it's also why I'm here today making videos like this to hopefully help you avoid your own crash, or if you happen to already be in one, hopefully to help you find your way back. Now, I started this video with a really bold statement: wellness is no longer optional. Now, why would I say that? I say that because the numbers and the lived experience of nurses in our field are really telling us something that we can't ignore anymore. According to a 2023 survey from the American Nurses Foundation, which is part of the ANA, 56% of nurses reported feeling completely burnt out. 60% reported high levels of daily stress. Now let that just sink in for a second. That's over half of our workforce completely stressed and burnt out and on the edge. Now, in a similar 2021 survey, nearly half of the nurses reported symptoms of anxiety or depression, and almost 1 in 4 said that they were considering leaving the profession altogether due to the emotional strain. And here's something that I don't think that we, talk about quite enough, which is that chronic stress and burnout don't just drain your energy. They actually impair your brain's ability to function. You're actually more likely to forget important details, make errors in judgment, and also struggle with decision making. And so, of course, none of that is good for nursing. Now, we're not going to be diving into all of the neuroscience today, but it is really fascinating. And if that is something that you'd be interested in exploring in a future video, please let me know in the comments, because I'd love to talk about, the brain and how it's all linked to performance and etc. There is so much there. Now, getting back to our statistics, the US Surgeon General has actually called clinician burnout a public health crisis. Of course, linking it, as we mentioned, to medical errors, mental health struggles, and also lower quality of care. And what I'll say is that it unfortunately gets even heavier, which is in 2021, a study in JAMA Psychiatry found that female nurses are more than twice as likely to die by suicide compared to women in the general population. Now, these are really sobering numbers, and I know that they're heavy, and we certainly do not want to dwell on the negative, but I do think it's important that we face and acknowledge them, because behind every data point is a nurse, a person just like you and I, who chose to get into this work to help, to heal, and to make a difference. And that's why we see more and more voices in our profession standing up and saying, hey, wellness isn't a perk, it's not a bonus, it's truly essential, and it's really our responsibility to own. And again, I know that those numbers were heavy, so let's just zoom out and take a look at what's happening across our profession, because I will tell you that there is hope, that there is movement, and the question is, how can we all be a part of the solution? And how can we all work the problem together? So in 2017, the ANA actually launched Healthy Nurse, Healthy Nation, which is a major initiative to promote nurse well-being at the national level. And their message was simple but powerful, which is we as nurses can't keep giving care if we aren't also taking care of ourselves and receiving care. And since then, many other nursing professional organizations have really followed suit. And the ANCC Magnet Recognition Program has now included workforce well-being standards in their Magnet application manual, which really encourages and pushes organizations to really take nurse well-being seriously. In 2024, ANCC stepped up their game even more and launched the Wellbeing Excellence Program, which is a standalone credential for organizations actively investing in the mental, emotional, and physical health of nurses in their organizations. We've also seen some really inspiring leadership from within the profession itself, and I'll name just a couple of them today, but there are many voices speaking up. So Dr. Bernadette Melnick is one of them that spent decades really advocating for real evidence-based strategies to support nurses' mental and physical health. And then there's Dr. Jean Watson, who's been literally named a living legend in nursing. And she, again, has been telling us for decades, for a long time, that caring for others really starts with caring for self. That healing presence, that human connection, that inner wholeness, that these things are not soft skills, that they're also not just nice to haves, that they truly are foundational core competencies in the art and science of nursing, and that it is our individual responsibility to cultivate these things. And it's not just these thought leaders, it's really all of us. Across the country, nurses truly are waking up, they're speaking out, and they're really, trying to reclaim their well-being. And then also another little fun fact, did you know this? Provision 5 of the ANA Code of Ethics says that nurses owe the same duty to self as to others. So, and that means that self-care isn't just personal, that it's actually professional, that it is an ethical responsibility and imperative. And that said, here's the truth. And I think we all know this in our gut, which is organizations can only get us so far. They can offer policies, coaching, a wellness room, and maybe even a mindfulness app, which these are all great things. But, they can't do the internal work for us. Wellness truly is a personal decision. It is a practice, and it is something that we each have to individually build from the inside out. Now, for some, wellness practices look like something like therapy or counseling. For others, it's prayer or solitude or, exercise and movement. For others, it's boundaries. And maybe it's, walking away from a toxic environment. And it's probably multifaceted. It's probably a layered approach for many of us. So again, there's no one size fits all. But the one thing that's constant is that we each have to own our piece of it. So for me, my journey back to wellness was really deeply spiritual. It started spiritual, and then it was intellectual and relational, and of course, physical. And I will also tell you that it wasn't quick. I had to rebuild wellness and well-being intentionally, really brick by brick. And it's still something that I have to do, that it's something I choose and I practice every single day. So if you take one thing away from this video, let it be this: please take your wellness seriously. I will just tell you that I didn't, not at first. And I thought if I just kept a good attitude, if I pushed through, if I stayed positive and I kept smiling, I'd be fine. And I was until I wasn't. So what I wanted to do today is share a simple reset framework that you can try this week to help you kind of get wellness back on your radar. Now, this is not a life overhaul. This is just a quick reset. So let me share it with you. Number 1, carve out 10 to 15 minutes of time for yourself. Block it off and protect it. This time really matters. And during that time, ask yourself a couple of really honest questions. And I will tell you, it may take a few of these where you have to carve out 10 to 15 minutes. Because what I will tell you is that in my own experience, I had become very numb, and it took me a while to really think through some of these things. So the first question to ask yourself is, what does wellness actually look like for me right now? Not what does my organization say that it looks like, not what does social media or Instagram tell me that it looks like. What does wellness actually look like for me? And if you think about well-being, what does being well actually mean for me? So just think about some of those things. And then the second question to ask yourself is, what is one small thing that I can do this week to actually move toward that? So, and then the last step is to really just choose one simple action, just one. Maybe it's turning off your notifications after 8 p.m. Maybe it's going outside for a walk and being in nature. I know that that is such a something that really refills my cup. But maybe it's saying no and setting a firm boundary without guilt. Maybe it's sitting still for just 5 minutes and taking some deep breaths. So the important thing is that this is not about perfection. This is all about progress, because when you start to feel better, you're going to lead better. And when you start to feel well, you're going to show up differently. You're going to show up more present, more grounded, and more of the you that you were created to be. So, and then that I think it's important to know that that ripple effect really matters, that your ripple matters at work, at home, and in every life that you touch each day. Now, the other thing that you can do is also check in with a teammate or colleague this week. So maybe it's someone that's been on your mind or someone who seems like they're having a rough day or maybe just not themselves recently. So, and I would recommend just asking them something simple and authentically asking them this. Hey, how are you doing? And then really pause and give them the space to answer. Because sometimes that one moment of real, genuine connection is all that it takes to really open the door and to start processing and start that healing. Now, if you want to take it a step further and actually start understanding the difference between being stressed, burnt out, or maybe just feeling like you're stuck in a fog, you can check out our next video. We break it all down so that you can figure out where you're at, what you need, and how you can start moving forward again. Because knowing where you're at, that really helps to change everything. It really shapes how you respond, how you recover, and then also how you rise.